We're back. We have Mike Israetel. Sam's here as well. Mike, thanks for coming on. Would you mind, before we roll in, can you give a little intro background on yourself?
Sure. Mike Israetel, I have a PhD in sport physiology, which is the science of taking good athletes and making them better. Um, I help run Renaissance Periodization, and I do a lot of YouTube stuff. And I designed the RP Diet Coach app, which coaches people in their diets automatically, and the RP Hypertrophy app, which allows folks to create workouts and use workouts and get jacked and lean, which is really the only purpose of life as far as I can tell. And so that's who I am and what I do.
That is pretty awesome. Now, before we get into the meat of today, I got a question. What does a day in the life of Dr. Mike look like?
Oh, yeah. This is a very easy question to answer because my days are very similar. There's some difference between weekends and weekdays, but I can parse that difference relatively quickly. So a typical weekday is I'll wake up around 8 a.m. and by 8:30 my wife and I are training in jiu-jitsu in our basement. I know that sounds sexual, but I assure you it's not. And we do some jiu-jitsu training. It usually lasts about half of an hour. And then we go for a morning cardio walk together very often. And that lasts another hour or so. And by 10 in the morning, I'm generally cleaned up and I descend down to the basement where I have an office. That's actually where I'm sitting right now. It's my favorite place in the world. It is a white room that's carpeted and has no art or windows at all. It has nothing in it. There's nothing in it except a 49-inch curved monitor and recliner. And in that room, I sit from about 10 to 2 p.m. to do RP work, which is all kinds of stuff, but mostly, creating code logic for the engineers and writing content for videos and writing books and stuff like that. And once 2 p.m. hits, I go upstairs, I make a workout shake, and I go to the gym, which is just 100 feet or so from the house. And from 2 to 4 p.m., I train with weights. My wife often joins. We don't do the same workout, but she has her own workout through the hypertrophy app. And I actually use the hypertrophy app for my own workouts. And then after 4 o'clock ends roughly around there, depending on the length of the workout, I go and eat a post-workout meal. And I usually go back down to the basement to continue to work till about 7. And then at about 7 or 7 to 8 or something like that, depending on the day, I will come back upstairs and start to just watch TV with my wife and relax and eat again. And then depending on the phase of training, dieting, I might eat again before I go to bed at around 10 to 11 is when we start to do the shutdown routine of showering and stuff. But might eat another meal then, or if I'm dieting like I am now, not really another meal then, maybe like some egg white wraps or something depressing. And then I go to sleep and I repeat that process over more or less 4 days a week. Friday is a slight change in the fact that after that workout, I might work a little bit less long of a duration and maybe do something fun later that night or just watch more TV. And then on the weekends, I wake up and my wife and I might do some jiu-jitsu training, but often we'll just wake up at around 8 or 9 and go straight to work. She has her own office in the home. She does like almost the exact routine I do. And then after about 3 hours or so, we lift weights on Saturday. Sunday's an off day. And then we might work a little bit more after that, but generally not often. Might train jiu-jitsu again. And then the rest of Saturday and most of Sunday, we just use for leisure time, which usually just means we go to the store, maybe we'll go to the mall to walk around, really buy anything, and park and walk around, hang out with our friends, often just watch more TV. And so we are the ultimate work hard and play very soft type of lifestyle. And that really is, other than travel and special events, that's how we've sort of settled into living life.
It sounds like you are extremely consistent, which is probably one of the things that helps to allow you to be so productive, because you seem to just crush a ton and ton of content, which is very difficult. So I definitely applaud you on that.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I think that content creation is a two-factor system. Factor one is, do you have the inherent generative ability to create content? It's got to come to you. If you're sitting around a long time thinking what content you should make, it's probably not up your alley. If you're like, oh, I have a trillion ideas, that's a very good start. And then part two is, do you have a system by which to take the ideas and to expand them into actual content? And that highly benefits from a scheduled workday, because then like, oh, today I have a to-do list. I'm going to make the following content or do the following work. And I have a weekly to-do list of these things need to get done. And over time, I sort of do them all. And then content gets created. So if you have that system in place, you just create at a certain pace. And I have work with a guy named Scott, the video guy. That's his given name, legal name. And it does all the YouTube uploading and editing and thumbnails and everything. So he's the man. And him and I paired up really well, because I create a crap load of content and he makes sure to post it in all the right places. So we work really collaboratively, and that's how content gets done. So we try to work ahead of schedule too, so that, like right now on YouTube, we're roughly a year ahead of schedule. So if I croaked tomorrow, we'd have another year of YouTube essentially uninterrupted for the most part. And then every winter we'll take a month or two where we go on a trip together, and we'll just sit in a small room and record another year's worth of YouTube videos in advance or something like that. So having a lot of content pre-recorded allows us to, like if we want to go on vacation or something, or take a trip for business, 2 weeks of not me making any content or recording anything is just like nothing to us. So I could do that for 6 months. So it's cool. I hate being behind. I actually still have dreams of when in high school and college I fell behind on work and failed classes, and they're nightmares always. And it doesn't matter how many accolades I get or how much money I make. Those dreams are never leaving me. And so I have to stay ahead of all of my work responsibilities in order to have my maximum amount of sanity. I'll say that.
I have so many follow-up questions with all of what you just said. I don't even know where. I guess question number one: when you all roll in the morning and practice jujitsu, is it in the same basement area as where you currently are now, or is it divided from your office?
Well, it's in the same basement, but my office is a separate room in the basement. So right now, if I look ahead, there's a door with a sliver of light in the margins, and that's it. So outside of there, yes, the mat exists in the general basement area, but it's definitely not in the same area. I grew up having attention deficit disorder, bad enough for me to fail most of my classes as a child. And eventually that got a lot better, but I've inherited some skills from those times where I understand the importance of siloing for deep work. I recently had quite a series of positive interactions with Alex Hormozy. I don't know if you guys know who that is, but I picked up a few things from him. But one was that his phone was always on do not disturb mode. And I recently, just only a few months ago, started to do that. And it's been a revelation to me, because I don't have any reason to be looking at my texts while I'm in my 3 or 4 hour slot of deep work. Like if China's nuking us, I'm going to die anyway. Sure that sirens will alert me to something. My wife is in the same house as me. If she needs me, she'll come get me. She's also highly self-sufficient. So if she's somewhere else, I don't need to be looking at her texts. Everyone at the company can check in through Slack or get me, and I'm not in a company role where I have to be an emergency backup. I'm not an engineer handling raw code. So I'm like, oh my God, I just don't need to ever look at my texts until I'm ready to look at them. And, people will text you about everything, and not a bad thing, because they just want to reach out. They'll text you jokes and memes and questions. And one thing about maybe being successful or helping yourself become more successful is you have to understand what it is that makes you successful and what it is that doesn't contribute much to making you successful. And you have to slot out time and physical space to do the things that create success, and then let all the other small rocks fall in between. And like, if you develop a reputation for only getting back to people via text a day or two later, but in the process you become the most successful version of yourself, gee, I think that's a fine trade-off. And also, the purpose of text is to be delayed. If someone wants to talk to you now, they'll call you. And the next question you have to ask is, why are they calling you? Do they really need to talk to you now? And the answer is almost always no. So what I've really leaned into in the past few months is that silo mentality. I go into my office, I'm dead to the world, and then I create things that are valuable. And that's planned in advance. I think a lot of people struggle with like being on their phone all the time, social media all the time. Do I make stuff? Do I check DMs? And even when I coach clients, my clients understand that I'm dead until and unless I respond to them. That's what they signed up for. And they never misunderstand that because it's made very clear to them. And then they get all their questions answered in a certain regular time interval, but they do not have instant access to me. If I was to price my instant access, it would be priced at an absolutely, completely obscene rate, which I would have guilt even putting on the internet. But that's how meaningful my deep work is to me. So huge recommendation is chunk out the deep work that really makes you a superstar and adds to your credentials over time. And that can even be client work. So for example, if you're coaching clients, maybe you take 3 hours out of every day to really check through your coaching software or emails or social media, respond to client requests, clear things up, send new plans. While you're working with clients, you do not touch Facebook, you do not touch Instagram, you do not touch anything. You're not available by phone, and you just do the thing that you do. And that's huge.
I'm so glad you discussed that. I read Cal Newport's Deep Work in undergrad, and it changed the way I viewed studying and spending time with people, where I think for the past like 6-7 years, my phone's literally on airplane mode the majority of the day. Because even do not disturb, I will still check it because you can still look, but airplane mode, it's like another level. And then people get mad of like, I texted you, it didn't even go through, but then they got used to it of when the phone turns back on, it just sends it. And to me, that's such a important concept of like allotting focused energy and effort on either your work or on your relationships and being present with whatever the task is. So I'm glad that,
Huge.
yeah.
You don't always have to be present for tasks. If you're just watching TV at night and my wife's half asleep, I'll like watch some TV, scroll, talk to people on social media, text with my friends, take a phone call, scroll some more. But like, that's the point, is whatever. It's a whatever time. So I think some people take the deep work thing real far and they're like, I'm watching a movie with my friends, I'm just going to be laser focused on this movie. Like, you can do that. You probably get more out of the movie, but then it's kind of serious all the time. So there's definitely times to unplug. But the important thing is that for everything you want to achieve, you figure out how many hours a day/week can I do this while not going insane, or do this in a sustainable way where I don't start hating it a lot. And however many hours that is, you slot them in and you label them as deep work, and you are siloed off for those hours. I've never read the deep work book, but again, probably because of my attention deficit disorder history, I had to do deep work because that was the only kind of work I could do. I remember watching people do their math homework in the hallway or during lunch, and they would like talk to people and do their homework. And they would get it done. They would get A's and stuff. And I was like baffled. I was so impressed. It's like, oh my God, like what kind of, can I swear in here, or is there no swearing? What kind of fucking genius are you? And then, when I was appropriately medicated for attention deficit disorder, I still couldn't do that. But I became the best math student in my high school in like, half a generation or something. It was like, oh, okay, I'm better at math than all these people. How can they do this? And I realized like, actually, I could do this. I just got a very partial grasp of the deeper concepts of mathematics, and I could do the work and get the right answers. But I always thought that really wasn't the point of math. The point of math was to learn a deep underlying beauty to the concepts, and to be able to think deeply on them and then extrapolate them to other areas that were not explicitly what you were practicing. That kind of thing takes like some deep thinking. I didn't come up with all my sports science ideas either just on a whim. I came up with them doing deep levels of analysis, really thinking about stuff, writing it down, making hierarchies and architectural schemes and that kind of stuff. Like you need you need to be very far away from any contact. And like, again, it's not everyone's jam, but windowless basement is where I get all of my best work done through my entire life. That's how I've gotten my best work done. When I got my PhD, we were in a laboratory in a windowless basement, and I would purposefully show up later when most people were leaving, and I would stay later when most people weren't around, and I would just have a lot of uninterrupted work time, headphones, computer monitor, keyboard, and boom. And I was just doing really cool shit. And it's actually also refreshing to see the world after you do that for a while. I go to Kroger or something to go shopping with my wife, and I'm like, oh my God, human beings interacting and speaking and stuff. There's, hours and hours and days where I don't really see anyone except for my wife. But it kind of makes the experience even more special. And so I guess maybe I'm like a person of extremes, but the way I see it is like, if you're going to want to do something and do it really well, you got to lean into doing it well. I think cobbling things together is like a huge pet peeve of mine. That's probably because I have like, some mild version of, perfectionism or OCD, and some mild version of Asperger's where, things that are off really bother me at a deep level for no good reason at all. And again, that's fine, but it makes me really productive. That's nice. And if I can be in my little cubicle, all is happy and I'm creating tons of value. So I think some people take an opposite perspective of kind of, you should be cognitively flexible and be able to work and be productive in a variety of environments. And that's like a neat idea, except my question back to that is why? And no one really has a good answer to that. Just in case you're in XYZ, you need to get work done. Like, well, I'm not ever in XYZ. I'm actually always in a fucking windowless office. Shouldn't I optimize for my environment? It's like telling Bill Gates he should like do some MMA because he's like, could be in a street fight. Be like, yeah, okay. But also I just never go in the street or I'm never in fights. It's been 68 years and I haven't gotten in a single fight. So I'm just going to go ahead and like do what makes me billions and what gives the world trillions in value. So I'm all good for that. I think Alex Hormozy called it another thing, the season of no. When he works on a really big project, he just tells everyone who wants to work on other stuff, I will not be available for months. My answer is no. I will not go see you in Miami when the family gathering occurs. I will not go on vacation. I will not talk to XYZ person. I will not pick you up from the airport. I'm dead. And I'm only doing this. And it's like, well, that's really callous. Like, yes, but he has $100 million. Shit didn't come from thin air, created that value, saying no to a lot of other things. So, which is really difficult on social media, especially with perceptions, because you could see a lot of other folks that create content. They post I'm in Italy today, and I'm hanging out with my family, and there's all this illusion of a balanced life. But balance comes mostly from what you want it to be and what your goals really are. I live a phenomenally unbalanced life, but I make a lot of money, so that's nice, and more so than that, I'm very, very happy doing it. If I don't live a structure, I can do a non-structured life for like maybe half a week, maybe a week of travel after like a bodybuilding show or something where I lived way too structured of a life, because I do get some cabin fever. I'm there now. I'm like 2.5 weeks out of a show, but I have to have structure return shortly. And different people have a different balance of that. It's about finding your balance. Another thing is this: your balance could be that you don't do well with structure, and you need to have like a lot of sporadic stuff in your life, which means you'll probably enjoy the shit out of life a lot, but it probably you won't be as productive as the person next to you, which maybe isn't something that you want, or maybe isn't something that you realistically know. So for like, if you told me like, hey, Mike, do everything you can to become as good at basketball as possible, I'd be like, bro, I'm Jewish and I'm 5'6", man. Fuck out of my face. Like, that's not going to happen for me. So maybe that's just not in the cards for me, talent or preference wise, to be a high paid basketball player. But just the same, it might not be in the cards for someone to be a mega producer of content. And they'll ask you, like, how do you produce so much content? You tell them, you're like, well, I just sit in a windowless office for hours a day. And they're like, oh my God, that must be really hard. Like, actually, it's the thing I want to do most in this world. And they're like, okay, you lost me. And I'm like, well, that's the secret to content you wanted to know. Anyway.
Speaking of content, before we go into the main topic today of hypertrophy, when you do sit down with Scott, the video guy, that's his real name, right?
His given government name,
right?
His family name.
So when I watch it, it comes across as almost like you're doing this in one take. Are a lot of these you have to repeat because you mess up, or can some you just flow, take it, and then move on to the next content?
We do almost everything in one take. I don't. Uh, I screwed up something last week, and it was the first time in like months that I screwed anything up. So it's almost all one take.
That's
It's one take
amazing.
now, right? This is one take. We're not cutting this.
That's true. This is more of a comment, but I think the best thing you've ever created is the video of you commenting and reading the children's book.
Oh,
Phenomenal.
jeez.
Like a year
We might
ago.
do another one of those.
It's
I'll get
amazing.
arrested sooner or later for that.
Sam, if you haven't watched that, I'll send it to you. It's on, I think, RP's main channel on
Yes.
YouTube. Somehow, I watched it a year ago whenever it came out, and then it somehow the algorithm sent it back to me, maybe because it knew I could
Excellent.
interview you. And I rewatched it like a week ago, and it was just as good. So,
Do you guys have children by chance, or associate with children?
Yeah,
Sam,
I've got
Sam, you do?
two young kids. Yeah,
How old are they?
they'll turn 2 and 4 next month.
Do you read them books?
Yeah, every night.
Do you ever wonder why children's books often make no sense at all? Like, they don't
all the
have a
time.
cogent plot. There's no lesson to be learned. That's the one thing. Like, I have I have nieces and nephews that I'll occasionally read books to them, or read their books when I'm over, just thumb through them. And I'm like, this is satanic nonsense. Who writes this? And I'm kidding about the satanic part, but not the nonsense part. And, like, you're used to books having like an introduction of sorts, like, here's where we are, here's the universe, here's the problem, and the character is going to solve it. Difficulties abound, problem solved, here's the lesson, see you guys next time. And a lot of children's books just don't have that structure. It's just somebody rambling on about some mystical world, and then the book ends. And I was like, what the hell? So I had to read one of these books because it was just pure nonsense. And it just raises a lot of questions about who's educating our children. We have to protect our children from these people.
My wife buys a lot of very purposeful books. So my children have like a anti-racist baby, and it's like a book that goes through and explains
Oh, yes.
how to not be a racist. And
that book is the other type of totally vile make-believe that I couldn't hate more. But I wouldn't get canceled if I commented on that, but I suppose that's not really the purpose of this podcast. However, I will say, I'll give the book credit. It absolutely has an agenda, and it works very clearly from point A to point B, which is more than you can say for like a ton of other children's books. And you know what? It probably doesn't matter, right? Like, kids are going to pretend their way through that book anyway. You're just like generative streaming to them. You're like dinosaurs and boom, boom, and they step like this, and they're like, wow. And they're not really like, is there a plot? And funny enough, when they get older and you read them books that are too young for their age, they're like, that didn't make any sense. And you're like, oh, yes, you're becoming super intelligent. I love it. Let's get to the books where things make sense. And they're like, great. And you give them Harry Potter and you walk out of the room. And that's the last time they see their father. Ideally.
well, I agree with that overall. I do have one book that I really enjoy, and it's called like The Story of Rap, and it's a chronological history of rap music. And I don't think my children obviously have any comprehension of what I'm telling them, but it goes through like all, it started with DJ Grandmaster Flash telling stories in Brooklyn, and then it like goes through and gives you all these different rappers across time, going into like Lauryn Hill,
I want to
Missy
read
Elliott.
that book.
Yeah, I really enjoy it, best especially because it's also written in raps. So then you're like reading line by
Dope.
line. And
do they have the colorful Ebonic language in there, or is it layered more for children? Now, Lauryn Hill said some pretty terrible things in a variety of her music. Is there a part where like, this is Lauryn Hill's quotes about white people in general? And you're like, does she not like white people? Like, that's correct. That's her stated opinion. We're all different. So
it just does not have that, but we could make a new version of it for you to read on YouTube.
What rappers are actually thinking? And you're like, oh my God, these are literal quotes. Like, yep, turns out they're mostly drug dealers and criminals. What a strange time. I mean, Missy Elliott, I can't talk. Missy Elliott's a goddess and a queen. Everyone else, whatever. Lauryn Hill's dope. They're all really good at what they do. Except, this is going to get me canceled for sure. As an artist and a business person and a motivational figure, Eminem, amazing. I've never heard a single song of his where I was like, yeah, hell yeah. I'm just like, I don't feel it, Busta Rhymes, my God. I was the first album I ever bought was Extinction Level Event in 1999. And it was, critically acclaimed, terrible album. I loved it. every single minute of it. M&M, I don't know. Am I missing something, guys? Am I wrong objectively? I mean, on the numbers, M&M's the best
No.
wrapper of all time, so clearly I'm mistaken.
This is the perfect segue to talk about hypertrophy. So let's do it. Uh, we'll dive right in. So, Mike, what actually matters for building muscle? What are the big rocks that everyone should know?
Yeah, big rocks says it all. You got to lift big rocks up and down. Side to side works, but not as well because gravity only points one way. The critical elements of hypertrophy are as follows: that you resistance train, targeting the muscles that you want with heavy resistance training, sets of 5 to 30 repetitions that are challenging. And on the nutritional side, that you consume an adequate amount of protein and calories, probably in that order. Because if you consume plenty of calories but not enough protein, you generally don't build much muscle, you build fat. If you consume not enough calories, but you do consume enough protein, especially as a beginner, you can still grow a lot of muscle while shrinking down your fat stores. At some point, you will need to enter a hypercaloric diet. If you weigh 150 pounds, you want to weigh 170, there's actually physically, and I mean physically, no way to get there unless you eat more calories than you burn. But eating protein, eating plenty of food, and resistance training regularly, targeting the muscles that you want to hit. Those are the big rocks. And regularly means, as a beginner, training every muscle of your body that you want to grow, whether directly or indirectly, at least twice a week, with something like an average of 3 to 5 sets per muscle group per session. 6 to 10 sets per week is a real good start. And then over time, what you're going to realize is that 2 times a week continues to give you results. But if you go to 3 times a week training, changing nothing else about the plan, you can get some better results, notably better results. 2 times a week and 3 times a week training show very small differences in beginners, but very large differences in intermediates. And late stage intermediates may, no matter how hard they train, from 2 days a week of training, gain nothing, and then gain something with 3 days a week, and a lot more with 4 days a week, such that the difference in results between 2-day a week training and 3-day a week training is an infinite percent, because the zero is the denominator there. So over time, you layer in sessions, and then eventually training 4 to 6 days a week with something like on average of 8 to 16 or 10 to 20 working sets per muscle group per week, and making sure that lifting is continuously as difficult as it ever was, at least. You'll get stronger, which means you'll either have to add repetitions or you'll have to add load. You can't just keep doing the same stuff. And then variation and all these other more complicated variables enter. But a lot of that is just showing up to the gym, lifting weights hard and heavy for a consistent exposure of 2 to 6 sessions per week, and doing that for months and months and months. And that's a big thing that people miss with muscle growth, is fat loss can occur at almost an order of magnitude faster than muscle growth can. Sometimes for advanced people, definitely an order of magnitude. Like if I have to lose 15 pounds of fat, I can do that in 3 months, no problem. If you said, how long would it take you to gain 15 pounds of muscle? I mean, for me at this point in my career at age 39, there is nothing I can do. Well, there's some things I can do to drive me nuts and kill me 5 years later with anabolics, but certainly nothing convenient. And maybe I'd be lucky to put on 3 to 5 pounds of muscle per year. And so a lot of people, they see fitness transformations, they see how easy it is to get lean, and they kind of assume that muscularity will come on just as quickly. And they sometimes become frustrated and start looking for, how do I enhance this process because it's so slow? But sometimes the process is inherently a slower process, and you just have to lean into it and stay consistent.
Yeah, to that point, how do you know when we just need to know that this is going to be a longer time period than you were hoping or expecting, versus, there's for sure ways we could go about this process faster, and there are things we could do to expedite this or speed this up outside of taking certain drugs from it? Is it just like, okay, we're going to look at what are the things you're doing? These are easy things you're missing. For sure, we could go through a quicker process.
Yeah. So I think there are 3 things that you can think about as troubleshooting points on a checklist, and there's a huge drop-down menu for all three. One is quality. Like, are you cutting your range of motion to a range of motion that's not optimal? Is your exercise selection not ideal from a stimulus to fatigue ratio perspective? Is your plan organized in a way that's not really that great? And so that's qualitative stuff. That's probably one of the first things to look at, because quantity is built on a foundation of quality. If you have shit bricks from the brick factory that collapse under a certain load, it doesn't really matter how many of them you stack up, your skyscraper is going to fall down. But if you have high quality bricks, then you can be very confident that enough quantity of them, you can build megastructures. So quality first on training is a good thing to look at. And I could speak at length about what all that means. I just gave a few examples. Once you have your quality pretty well figured out, the quantity of training is the next thing to go to. And quantity of training can be very well measured and proxied by how well recovered are you. So for example, if you train 2 times a week and you're like, man, these results are kind of slow, and someone asks you, do you feel like you're really pushing the limits of how quickly you can recover and come back again to train again by your next session? You're like, I don't even know what that means. Like, do your muscles still sore and tired and weak from last time? You're like, no, I don't actually get sore or tired really anymore. Like, well, okay, so your theoretical recovery capacity is like a huge fraction above what you're currently doing. Like, yes. Well, you can probably do more. It's kind of like, in Ukraine right now, Zelensky committed 1/10 of his forces to try to do a breakthrough on the Russian lines. They're like, oh, sir, we're slogging through. It's really slow. He'd be like, oh, all right, keep going. But like, don't we have like 90% of the force in reserve? Like, well, yeah. Like, shouldn't we try another 40% at least to see what that does? Like, oh, yeah, good point. So a lot of people will train, 2 or 3 days a week and think nothing of it. And you're like, professional bodybuilders train 6 days a week. Sometimes they'll train 2 a days. And that's really what the upper end is. And people say, well, they're on drugs, blah, blah, they don't have day jobs, which is both mostly true. But the real question is, how close are you to your recovery limit, your maximum recoverable volume within a course of a week? And the real way to ask that question is, can you continue to stabilize or improve your performance in your reps and load for weeks and weeks on end? Or are you capped by a certain amount? Like after a certain week, number 4, the next week you're just debilitated and broken and you can't hit PRs anymore. Say, okay, well, weeks 1 through 3, you were at a volume below your MRV. Now you're hitting close to MRV and the cumulative fatigue is really setting in. Sounds like 4 weeks is really when you kick the bucket. And maybe that's if you train 5 days a week and 4 weeks is the longest you can make it. Yeah, that actually really is good training. And it's a very difficult argument to make. Like, well, you should train much more. Like, how, dude? Am I going to train 2 weeks at a time and then overreach? Seems like a weird idea. So you're definitely just asking yourself, can I push it harder and still recover? And if the answer is yes, try a little bit harder. So add don't go from 2 days a week to 4 days a week. Go from 2 days to 3 days and see how the results change. So that's that second thing, is quantity. And the third thing is, how concordant is your nutrition and recovery? So if you're sleeping 5 hours a night when your body needs like maybe 8 in your case, if you're eating in a way that's just not a real decent attempt at eating, I've had a lot of folks complain, oh, I can't grow muscle, and they say, what did you eat for lunch today? And they're like a piece of string cheese and a few Oreos. And dude, you're the fucking man. No one's ever going to stop you from becoming Mr. Olympia. You're like, oh, it's too nutritious, your diet. I'm worried about you of orthorexia here. And they're like, really? You're like, no, not really. Damn it. You're barely trying. So a lot of times eating structured multiple meals per day, high in protein, eating a lot of nutritious carbohydrates, eating enough healthy fats, making sure your calories are where they're supposed to be, and actually generating a surplus. A lot of people say, I haven't been able to gain any muscle. And I'd say, well, how much did you weigh last year? They're 150 pounds. How much did you weigh this year? 150 pounds. Did you ever try to gain weight? They're like, no, because I was told if you just gain or whatever, you can make all the muscle gains you want. And that's just wrong. The reason you weigh what you weigh is mostly a function of your genetics, and the function of your genetics is it determines your basal appetite level in any given food environment. And so if you just don't feel like eating, you'll stay 150 pounds, and your body's muscles are screaming at you as they want more food. And you're like, eh. So if you just eat purposefully more than you're comfortable with, you could just get really fat because your muscle genetic ceiling is already very close. But there's a very likely chance that you're going to gain a substantial amount of muscle and strength and go, oh, crap, why didn't I try this earlier? So intentional weight gain is a big part of that whole third point of, is your nutrition and your recovery in a serious place? And there are more things that go through that, but I actually forgot on the quantity thing. we're getting out of this process now because we have the hypertrophy app, but we used to sell templates on the Renaissance Periodization website. And we had advanced templates for physique. And the advanced templates were like 4, 5, and 6 days. And the beginner templates were like 2, 3, 4, 5 days or something. I remember we had a few inquiries from, well-meaning customers. I don't mean to degrade our customers, but we asked a few times, like, are there any 2x or 3x advanced templates? And we had to explain to them, like, when you're advanced, 2 or 3x is what you do to maybe maintain your results. You will not gain on them. You cannot be. It's like saying, like I'm a formula driver. Is there like a station wagon I can buy that's for formula drivers? And you're like, no, what? No. The station wagon is to transport your children to school and back. There is no version of it that is going to be impressive enough to go fast enough for you that really tickles your pickle. So it's kind of that echoing that second point of quantity. It's like somebody should tell that person that if they're advanced, they want results, they're going to have to show up to the gym and train a little more. And interestingly enough, we had a similar question where people would say, so I noticed that on the 4-day-a-week template, there's not as much total volume, exercises times sets, as there is on the 6-day. What's the reason for that? I'm like, well, workout can only last so long until your quality is totally degraded and you're just there doing junk volume and moving around even though you're half dead. And they're like, so is it true that you can really get more work done in 6 days a week than 4? Yes. And there's no reason to try to equalize that. And I remember people running bastardized Shaco programs they got on the internet from the powerlifting days. And they would do, I knew actually a whole powerlifting team that only trained Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And their workouts were squat, bench press, deadlift, accessory every one of those days. And I was coaching a girl who went to that school who was not on the powerlifting team there. And she's like, dude, these people work out for 3.5 hours each day. And I was like, did anyone tell them that they could do 1.5 hour workouts 6 days a week and just get the results of their lives? And it just never occurred to them. Like, actually, you can't just condense everything. It's like you go meet with Elon Musk for some reason. You're like, how do I become like a mogul? And he gives you a list and you're like, dude, this is dope. Like, is there a way to like cut this down to like 20 hours a week? He'd probably just like punch you in the face and fuck off.
So outside of the things you just mentioned, when you're looking at coaches, clinicians, what are the things you're just like, they're missing the boat? What are the most common things? I mean, we can go into maybe some of those like celebrity workout videos. It seems like there's a lot of recurring themes there, but what do you commonly see just kind of wrecking people's ability to progress?
One is a lack of tracking. You don't know if you're progressing unless you're writing stuff down. Another is lack of a plan, hitting the same muscle groups week on week with the same exercises, adding a repetition or adding 5 pounds. That's how you make the best combination of tracking and progress, as progress is incremental. And some people do so much variation that they don't even know if they're progressing. Another one is trainers and clinicians often don't come back to a needs analysis and to figure out what their client actually values the most. So they train their client for something. It turns out that something isn't even what the client wants. So in the personal training world, I'm actually currently involved in a project that's making a lot of sort of university grade courses about this specific topic. I'll be able to say more about that probably in a few months. But a lot of people will come to you as personal training clients and they'll say, I want to be stronger and healthier. And they're almost always lying to themselves, first and foremost. 90% of people that enter a personal training situation just want to look better naked and with clothes on. They just want to look better. And so if you cut to the chase with them and go, hey, like, what do you think about like how you want to look? And they're like, oh, well, yeah. I mean, yeah. No, yeah, I want to look like this. And then you have a plan that actually addresses the muscle groups that they want to train instead of the ones they say they want to train because it's politically correct to say. And all of a sudden you're getting really good results with them because it's a plan, because it's goal directed, and because you did the needs analysis first. With clinicians, like, oh, how should I say this? Fuck it. I'll just be honest. There's a huge fraction, and this is absolutely worse in personal training and physique enhancement. So it's actually better in physical therapy, but in physical therapy and sort of rehabilitative practice, there's a just enormous fraction of people that are fucking charlatans, and even if they're not trying to lie to you, they just know bordering on nothing. They know vague generalities, and because the body has an inherent self-healing system and is very resilient, because rehab happens automatically if you just do appropriate pain management and work slowly into activities, they'll easily take credit for people getting better in a clinical setting, even though they never had a plan to begin with. I had a very particularly unfortunate experience where I had a pec injury, actually in both pecs. I had hypercontractility, so I would flex my pec and it would do that afterwards. Like a second later, it would flex itself, and I'd be like, "That's not good." And I had some pain in the muscle and the tendon region. It was never diagnosed. It will never be diagnosed. It's now no longer with me. Got the same thing in my triceps. I got the same thing in my quads for a while. No one ever knew what to do with it. I went to a lot of experts. They had no idea. And the real experts just said this, I have no idea what's going on. So, okay, no worries. But one of them sent me to physical therapy. This is a funny story. And I had a very nice lady, very nice PT. And she put the fucking, that like the gel on and did some EMS stuff. And she did like some massage stuff. This is all in the same session. It's one session, and then she put me on the flat press machine they just had there, like a flat bench press machine, cable selectorized, and she was like, she put the thing into like 70 pounds, and she's like, do like a set of 10, nice and slow, and I did it. And I was already an undergraduate in exercise science, and I was like, what is the purpose of this specific thing? Because the other stuff, I was like, I don't know, it's healing potions through the skin. Fuck if I know what it is. And she was like, oh, it's to strengthen your muscles and connective tissues after the injury. And I was like, oh, cool, check this out. So I put it to the bottom of the stack, went 5 times, racked it. She was like, what the hell? And I was like, there is no muscle strength problem. Now, if you notice my pecs, they're contracting by themselves. That's the problem. And she's like, I honestly just don't know what to do. And I was like, I know. I didn't say it that curtly. I was like, no worries. And we finished the session. I, of course, never came back. But like, she was just doing stuff. She didn't have a plan. There was no diagnosis. There was no attempted theoretical situation involved. Like, maybe it could be this. She talked to me for almost no time and assessing actually what is that you think is wrong with you, at least. She just did stuff. And like, that's a lot of rehab and PT. It's just, I just have them do stuff, put them on the Bosu ball, strengthen their knee cartilage with leg extensions. And it's like just taking stuff for granted and just running. And I think that's a huge disservice. So you can do better if you actually figure out why are we here. And sometimes, pain science and all that stuff, sometimes like your best bet inside your own head is that physiologically there's not a damn thing wrong with them. But then you make the program. It's actually very easy. You make the program to address. You can tell them whatever, but whether or not they're ready to hear it. But you can make a program that's just designed to address basic movement confidence and competency. Like, like, I understand your knee hurts. We're going to squat to a chair, really high chair. After a couple sets of 10, they're like, does that feel okay? They're like, it actually feels great. Like, wonderful. See you next time. Next time you squat to a lower chair. First couple reps, like, I don't know about this. Like, don't worry. If it hurts, we'll just absolutely back up and go back to the high chair. After a couple of sets, like, that feels great. 3 weeks later, they're dunking squats with 95 pounds. Get the fuck out of here. There's nothing wrong with your knee. There never was. Now, you might not tell them that last part, but at least you have a plan. Even if you don't think there's anything mechanically wrong with them, you can absolutely grade their exposure for the psychological benefit. And I think a lot of people just kind of, a lot of PTs will just validate their clients and say, yep, it's definitely something wrong with your knee. Like, you don't know that. Don't tell them that. And on the other end, there's could be something gratuitously wrong at a mechanical level with your knee. Like there's cartilage floating where it's not supposed to be. And they're like, we're just going to do sets of 10. And that's really going to strengthen the cartilage. Like the fucking cartilage is off the bone. How the hell are you going to strengthen? What does that even mean? And so, due diligence process, very specific. What are we here to do? Communicating with the client, setting into motion an evidence-based plan, auto-regulating and tracking from that. It's a job. It's a job. A lot of people who personal train and who do physical therapy, they're kind of like out to lunch the entire time. Like, yep, good job, Karen. Another set of 10 leg extensions. Sweet. And it's like, no. You can do better than that. You can be really engaged. And sometimes it's tough, though, because personal training, people miss sessions and they're like, hey, I'm going to be gone for a week. See you in a week. And then like 2 weeks later, they're like, I'm not getting really good results. And like, what do you tell them? Like, results of what? And in physical therapy, it's worse because a lot of times that they don't even want to be there. It's like the surgeon wrote them the script and then they're like, ta-da, here I am. And they're like, dope. Do you want to walk again? And they're like, yeah. And you're like, all right, maybe we'll train some stuff. Maybe we won't. Who knows?
So to that process and the needs analysis, currently, what does it look like when you take on a new client of your own from they reach out to you or you have an initial connection from that moment to actually them starting the program? What does that actually look like now?
Yes. So the first thing I want them to do is to brain dump everything to me that they want and what their hopes are and what their problems are. I want you to tell me why you're hiring me. The next thing that happens is I critically appraise their brain dump into what is the intersection between what you want and what I can realistically ensure that you're likely to get. And then the rest of the stuff I say, this we can work on over a longer time, or this I actually can't get you, nobody can. Spot reduction, for example, like, oh, I really have a spare tire, but my arms are lean. Dope. I'm waiting for advanced surgery to get here to deal with that. It's been a few years in the making. So once you tell them what you can get them of their results, they go, okay, well, that sounds really great. And then you start to talk to them about timelines and commitments. So say, okay, what I can get you is going to take us 16 weeks of you training 4 days a week and you doing diligence to the diet. Is that something that's up your alley? And if it's not, what can you commit to? And then they tell you, okay, I can do 12 weeks because actually at week 13, I've gone a big trip Europe with my family. And I can absolutely guarantee you 3 days a week that I can make it to training. You say, okay, great. And then based on their brain dump needs analysis, you develop a plan that attends to their concerns. And once you develop that plan, you reach out to them and you say, I have a plan for you. Let's talk about the plan. And then you talk to them in depth, describing the plan to the degree that you feel like they need to know about it / are interested about it. So there's a combination there where if I know you don't really know what you're looking at, I will talk you through the plan in general terms because the specifics don't make sense to you anyway, but also know I have to tell you stuff because you won't figure it out by yourself. If you're more advanced, I'll give you the plan and I'll give you a couple of bullet points of like, you'll notice we're doing XYZ for XYZ reasons. Let me know after looking at the rest of the plan if you have any questions. And then there's the initial period of them asking questions. You answer, they ask, you answer. And after a while, you go, hey, what do you think? And they're like, fucking let's do this. And then you begin the interactive process of they do the training, you check their training, you modify some things, you tell them good job here, this you could do better. They do the diet, you do the same interactive process, you continue on. Every now and again, you realign on goals. You say, okay, it's been 8 weeks, we've lost 10 pounds, you're the fucking man, keep going. Or you say it's been 6 weeks, had a couple off weeks there. If we're going to burn you out, we can still have the original goal. You're probably aren't going to succeed on your European trip with your family. You're going to be so hungry, you're going to eat one of your children. Terrible. I know you guys didn't think I was taking it there, but it's that hungry, right? And then maybe we should, I highly recommend that we alter your goals. And I have had a few conversations with clients in the past, a few hundred, I guess, where people do this. And this is something maybe your guys' audience will benefit from. Your clients will choose a vector direction. They'll say, I want this result in this many weeks. And you go, okay, so this is what's going to take. And they're like, yeah, no, I'm there. And then they'll have like 3 or 4 weeks in the middle of that 8-week plan that they just like, I don't know where they are, Pluto, they just fuck off, or they just suck. They're just like, yeah, I didn't get a chance to eat this meal today. I'm going to have to cancel my Tuesday workout, blah, 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 blah. And what you do not want to happen as a coach is to unmoor them from reality for too long. So after about 1 week, everyone screws up every now and again. After 2 weeks of obviously they're not sticking to the plan, you have to have a conversation about their end goal. You say, hey, like, it's been a tough few weeks. And they're like, I know. I'll be like, okay, I think we should probably readjust your plan to make sure we're choosing something realistic that you can actually accomplish. And sometimes they'll fight you on it. Like, no, I still think I can do it. Like, yeah, right on. Well, I'm the expert and you can't. I'm betting against you. How's that sound? You want to bet against me? Sweet. Like, if Steve Jobs bets against me in, designing software, I'm not going to, you're the fucking man. Oh, what do I know? Like, he says we can't do it. That means we can't do it. You can imagine going to like a nuclear power plant and be like, can you guys crank the levels to 110? They're like, that's going to cause a meltdown. You're like, nah, fucking do it anyway. Like, no, that's a nuclear engineer. You should listen to what they're saying. So a lot of people will have reverence for your position and they'll say, okay, are you sure? I mean, I can try harder. And then there's an interesting conversation there where it's like, well, if you could try harder, what is the evidence of that? I don't want to stray into this analogy too far, but it's like an abusive husband, in divorce court is like, I can do better. And I'm like, all right on. Are you going to like practice boxing against your wife better or something? Are you like for the first time in your life not going to hit your wife or girlfriend? Like talk is cheap. So a lot of times when clients say, no, I can clean up my act, to say, okay, why don't we do this? We're going to regress your goals down to 6 pounds instead of 8 pounds total weight loss. But if you're cruising and crushing it and you get a little bit ahead of schedule, maybe we'll take a look at it again. Because then, like, you're the man, right? Show me. So it's really good to stay interactive in that regard, because some people will slip up, and you have to make sure because if you are a coach and you let them slip up and you don't say much to them, they're going to be like, hey, like 2 weeks out, you're like, yep, you're going to lose 6 pounds. Like, I thought I was supposed to lose 10. Like, what are you going to tell them then? Like, well, actually, like weeks 3 through 6, you suck total dick, and thus it's impossible for you to lose the weight. You should have said something earlier. And sometimes clients get a little testy. Like they'll say, well, look, like I have kids. And you're like, oh, I do understand that. And you're a goddess for even trying. And I think that we have 2 options now. We can fail together, and I'll fail with you, fuck it, to get your 8-pound fat loss goal, or we both succeed together getting 6. Which one do you want? And most people then will be like, okay, fine, 6 it is. And another thing is, I think a lot of young coaches and trainers have trouble sort of serving the real deal to their clients. And I think they'll take the blame for the lack of results. Almost every single client I've ever worked with, they know who's to blame. 1 out of 100 clients will be like, it's your fault. And then there's like a mentally unwell person you don't want as a client. Most people are like, hey, listen, like I haven't been going to my diet and it's on me. What should we do? And you go, listen, back to work. We're going to re-architect your goals a little bit. You're going to finish strong. Got it? And they're like, got it. And then they do it. Or they don't, and they have a really shitty prep. And then they're usually like, I've literally seen reviews for coaches like, I did. These are like anonymous reviews, so they can say whatever and say like, oh, what was it like to work with prep coach XYZ? And some people leave reviews that say, like, I didn't get good results, but it was totally on me. I didn't follow the plan. This is a great coach, and I would be honored to be coached by them again. You're like, wow, that's a hell of a review. Very rarely are clients going to turn on you when they know that they're in the wrong. So don't be shy in steering people back to the truth, because honestly, one of your main jobs as a coach is to keep people on the straight and narrow. If people have no problem keeping themselves on the straight and narrow, they download the RP Diet Coach app, they download the RP Hypertrophy app, and for a sum total of $50 a month, which you can't beat as a coach rates-wise, they're getting the results of their lives. They don't need you. They need you precisely to be that adult in their lives. And another great thing, I think, in a sense, people worry about AI, taking coaches' jobs. Like when ChatGPT tells me to do something, I'm like, dope. No, ChatGPT is not going to be like, I'm really disappointed in you. And I know it's not going to do that. So I can just ignore it. Even I do predict in the next 10 years, we're going to have universal robotics will be with us. So robots will be as common as cell phones. They'll be walking around, and they'll be large language model based. So they'll be more intelligent than we are and be able to give you great advice. And can they personal train you then? Yes, they will be able to very competently personal train you. Will you listen to them? Maybe. But if instead of the robot shorts out and your trainer comes into the interface and now he's the robot, and he's like, hey, Nancy, it's me again. And you're like, oh, fuck, I got to do these lunges. Because if you don't do the lunges, robot says do 20 reps, you do 19. You look at the robot, what's he going to say? Like, he's going to say, good job. He's not going to say, like, I'm disappointed in you. All the software companies are like unanimous. Like, we will not make robots that tell people they're bad at stuff. We just won't do it. But a human being will tell you're bad at stuff. So as a coach, don't you worry about robotics and AI. You have to be the real person in that person's life, which means courteous, kind, and respectful. But at some point, there are 2 ways for them to get to know reality. One is you predict reality for them. You say, Nancy, you keep going like this, you won't get the results you want. The other way to get to reality is she finishes the 16-week plan, down only 2 pounds. That's a much stronger hit of reality. A coach is like a reality predictor. He'll tell you when you're off track. And so as a coach, be confident and make sure that remember, your clients are paying you for technical knowledge and guidance for sure, but they could get that a lot cheaper elsewhere. They're paying you a lot is for you being an agent, a moral agent, someone who can judge them and who does it gently. But they know, man, if I don't do what I'm supposed to, I have to tell another human being that I failed at this. And so don't be too nice to your clients, because that sets them up for you not doing your job, really. Imagine like a basketball coach that never corrected his team's, moves on the court as like a junior high basketball coach. But like, oh, everyone's great. They're like, he's a very pleasant man. We're going to lose all of our games because no one's learning any basketball. Like if you're dribbling wrong, he should be like, hey, like that, you're not doing the right thing. Let me show you how to do it right. Same idea with coaching.
So your day to day now obviously isn't filled with back to back personal training clients, but I knew in your years ago that used to be the norm. I think it was you and Nick would work in New York City at a gym, and that was pretty common, correct? Or other periods of your
Yes.
life. So if you were to go back to that at this point in your life and you had to see 6, 8, 10 personal training clients a day, is there anything you'd do differently now compared to when that period of time was earlier in your life?
They would charge like 20 times more money. I'm kidding. But that really is the only thing that would ever bring me back into that. Maybe it would be 50. It would be really tough to bring me back into personal training. I don't currently do any personal coaching in any capacity, but I'm going to be entering that soon in the next few months to take on a few clients. And in advance, my prices will be egregious and intentionally designed to get people not to do it unless they really want to, as I'm only taking like 3 clients at a time or something. But prices aside, I have a few tips. One is have a plan for all of your clients. Don't just go in there and just give people workouts. They paid for more than that, and it's going to keep you more sane to have a plan. Another thing is make sure that you bring your full energy and desire to see your clients improve. If you have clients that are on autopilot, you're tuned out, they're tuned out. I understand that if you need the money, it's better than nothing for maybe you both. It's a babysitting session. But as you become a better and better coach, you get to be selective with your clients because inherently your time is 40 hours a week or whatever. Like 40 training clients a week is actually fucking a lot. And, like when client 41 asks you, do you have any open sessions? And you know that client 42 is a harder worker, you're going to be like, nah, 41, I'm all booked up for infinity. Go away, or say, please reach out in a month or two, see if I have slots available. So I would say, first of all, bring your A game and make sure every single client gets the best service possible. It doesn't matter if you got trouble at home, trouble on the drive to work. You're there as the energy setter. You are the node. You are the strange attractor about which all the other things in the gym, especially your client, coalesce. And if you're bringing not psychotic cult kind of positivity, like we're going to be best friends, just like, a decent amount of positivity, the semblance of a plan, a little bit of comedy, a little bit of seriousness. You set the tone, you set the stage so that everyone has a great and challenging time, and you work on the clock. You don't let clients talk too much. Look, when they're resting between sets, hell yeah, do we blab about everything, right? But when it's set time, it's go time. And sometimes clients forget that, or they use conversation as a distraction to make sure you're not like hurting them anymore. Like I've literally had clients walk out a squat. I've had this happen so many times in New York. They'll realize, like the New York clients realized I was an intellectual quite early. And so like one lady like walk out with a squat bar and she'd be like, so tell me about like astronomy or whatever, like we were talking about last night. Like what can you tell me about, like, like black holes we were talking about? And I was like, yes. So black holes exist at the bottom of the squat and you got 10 reps to get in that hole. Bitch, are you out of your fucking mind? And she'd start laughing and be like, fuck, are you trying to distract me, girl? Go. And they're like, oh shit, I hate squatting. And then afterwards, they always thank you because they're like, look, I don't want to be here. That's why I pay you to make me be here. So you have to have some balance of positivity, like SpongeBob SquarePants, like, gee whiz, I love being in, the Krabby Patty Shack. Like, it's just great, like positivity combined with like, hey, we're here to work, man. It's serious. So you got to be able to be chatty between sessions, but when it, or between exercises, but when exercise time comes, it's suffering time and it's positive encouragement suffering, but like moth to the light, you turn on that light for them, fly to the light. I don't give a shit if you burn your wings off. We're here to burn them shits off. That's why we're here. Something Jared Feather and I say all the time, IFB Pro, head of RP's Elite Physique coaching division, is you want the pain. You're here for the pain. If you don't get some kind of disruption in your muscles, what is the guarantee that you're going to be jacked? Like, we're not here to go through the motions. If you bring that kind of vibe to training and you bring professionalism to training and bring excitement to training, it's amazing for your clients. It's even more amazing for you because at the end of each day, you get to be really proud of what you did. I showed up today and I was the trendsetter. I was the lead goose, right, that all the other geese draft off of. And I did my job well. And I'm a fucking amazing trainer. And when they train with many, many other trainers, they will realize, like, whoa, this person's like a zombie or something. This sucks. I want my old coach back. And if you have a reputation for being a great trainer that's engaging and reaches out to their clients and does a great job, then gee whiz, you can start to charge kind of obscene rates. And the other thing I will say, some small business advice for folks in the coaching community, is once you fill up enough client slots to where you're busy all week, and then clients sign up for you more and more and more, I would highly engage. This is difficult for me to still say because I know it's intellectually true, but it doesn't fit with my soul very well. You start raising rates so that you are charging as much as possible for coaching. From an ethics perspective, that sounds terrible because you're like fleecing them for all they got. But remember, people who buy personal training from you are generally make more money than you or a comparable amount. A lot of times they're smarter and more successful and older than you. You're not fleecing shit. They don't get fleeced. I've trained, one guy I trained was like a hedge fund. He owned a private equity bank. He was worth $50 million. A 68-year-old curmudgeon Jewish man. Nobody was ever going to fleece that guy. I sure as shit wasn't. So if I say, hey, here's how much my training costs, he only agrees to shit he wants. And he has an infinite amount of money as far as I can tell. And so if I tell him, listen, all of my other clients pay me $150 an hour. I'm not taking any new clients. New clients will be paying me $200 an hour. He has one of two things he can say. One is, oh, that's too much, man. You're like, oh, no worries, man. Dude, it's been really great. The other thing is, yeah, fuck, sign me up. And people spend a lot of money on the things they love. And mostly the people that you train, personal training, they're wealthier. And you might not even be able to relate how much money they spend. I remember one of my first shocking incidents in personal training was I had a client and we had to re-sign him for another, what was it? It was a gym, so we have a personal training studio. So you try to sell them the big packages, so they commit for longer. And I was like, well, we have this package that actually saves you the most money per session, but it's like 100 sessions and it's $9,000. It was like, yeah, that sounds great. And he took out his card, just put it on the table, and I was like, okay, I don't even own $9,000. My entire life is a negative plus school loans, right? So he was just like, it just happened. And later I found out that guy was worth like 250 million plus, and he's now worth, I'm not going to say his name, but he's now worth over $1 billion. And when you make that much money, there's not an amount of money a personal trainer is going to tell you that the sessions cost that's going to impress you at all. If you think about someone who makes $100,000 a year, to them, $500 an hour is a lot of money. Okay. But someone who makes $1 million a year, to them, it's the same feel as $50 an hour. Well, like, I don't know, like get your nails done in a nail salon is $50. It's not a big deal. Personal training, $50 is actually quite cheap. So if you're training people who make $1 million a year, charging them $500 an hour is like, they're not really going to care. And then if you have someone who makes $10 million a year, which all these guys made even more than that, it's $5 an hour feel to them. They're like, it's like buying your kid a diet soda at the movies. You're like, God damn it, this thing's $5. Fuck, whatever, we're at the movies. It's at best an inconvenience. And usually it's like, oh yeah, whatever. Like this just doesn't matter anymore. So I think what you do is if you have a certain number of clients, and for new clients, if you don't need the clients because your refresh rate is so high, just bump your rates up a little bit, just a little, see how it works. Over time, you're going to be able to make a lot more money per client, which does a couple of great things. One is it only brings you two kinds of people. Very fucking serious people who really care about results, which you should be honored to train, or people so rich that they don't give a fuck. Fuck them. Who cares? They don't care. You don't care. Like these people go and buy like a $5,000 Prada bag. They clearly don't give a shit about $500 for training. The bag is useless. So is a no offense, Prada. I'm sure your bag contains things as well as any other bag, but it's like, totally different. Either they're mega rich and they don't care and you don't care. And they feel like they're giving you charity. Sweet. Thanks. Or they're like the most serious people who are there like, I am here, it's worth it to me to pay a lot of money because I know the results are going to be fucking good. And after a while, so that's the first benefit, is you are doing really well for the marketplace. You're treating your customers with the utmost, you're giving them exactly what they want. And the other thing is, when you make a lot of money, you never feel like your time is spent poorly. the last thing you want to feel as a personal trainer is like an eye roll emotion of like, fuck, I had to be here for how many? $25 an hour for this fucking asshole who doesn't even want to be here. Nobody wants to be here. Why are we here? I just go and get a job at McDonald's. They pay literally $20 an hour now. Fuck this. So if you don't want any of that, it's a bad vibe. But if you're getting paid, well, whatever, make believe money, $250 an hour, and for you, that fills your heart with some combination of like, I'm so fucking lucky, and it's audacious for me to be charging this. So I want to work that extra bit. I want to be really good because I want to earn that money. So then your clients get the best version of you possible. You feel amazing about the job you're doing. And if they don't like the money, if it's too much for them, but there's other people around that will pay that money, and they by definition deserve it more because they're willing to put up the money. Like imagine someone's like, you're auctioning off for a Ferrari or something. This is something I do in my spare time because I have millions and millions. I don't even go to the auctions. My butlers go to the auctions. They text me about, I'm on silent mode, so I never get the text. They just buy stuff. And so let's say you're auctioning up like a 1992 Ferrari F50 or something, and it's you, and you have the same income or wealth or whatever as another guy who's also bidding for it, except he's like a Ferrari connoisseur and it matters deep to his heart. And you go above 200K and you're like, fuck this car isn't worth that much. He goes to 250K and you're like, fucking take it. That's how the marketplace works for trainers. So if you're earning a certain amount of money as a trainer, if you can fill slots, that's the only thing that matters. The people coming to you are the ones that want it the most. And you can say, well, hold on, what about people of a lower income that would benefit greatly for your training, but they don't have the money for it? If you want to do charitable work, God bless you. Namaste. If that sits well with you, dope. And maybe you can save a certain fraction of your client slots for people of lower economic stratus. But then again, maybe you didn't think that one through either, because if you are thinking, oh, people who have a low economic status, they deserve good training. They do. Do you know how many startup trainers there are who went to prison? They don't have a high school diploma, but they learned on their own on the internet and they practiced on their own bodies, and they're fucking great people and they want to help. They can't charge $250 an hour. They can charge $50 though, and they serve those other folks of lower economic needs. And it's this amazing synergistic relationship. I mean, can you imagine if you're a trainer whose like criminal record isn't like whatever able to leverage their internet personality like you or whatever, and they're going to get a great client, but you come in and you're like, yeah, I'll give you a discount, see, $50. Like, I'm working at a loss here. You're like, I think your charity's getting in the way of everyone's benefit. Yeah, it's nice that you feel this way. So there's even an argument against that. So yes, you can totally keep your rates low if you have that icky feeling that you're ripping people off. I just want to encourage people to really think that whole cycle through, to realize that because everyone's there because they want to be there, and because the money makes you better at your job and motivates you and motivates them. There's another thing I didn't mention. When someone pays $25 a session and they decide to cancel, who gives a shit? If they're paying you $250, it's golden handcuffs. They're like, fuck, am I really going to toast $250 not showing up? No, you're going to show up because you said you would, and the money's kind of here keeping you to it. So all that combined is basically saying, as a personal trainer, you do your very best every single time. You mail in nothing. You always bring your A game, and that's amazing for your clients. And over time, you get so many clients, you only have so many hours a day, then start to raise your rates because there's not a goddamn thing wrong with that. And then eventually you're making more money and you're coaching a kind of client that is either ultra rich, sweet, those people are fun to interact with, or ultra dedicated, or often both. And then it's like a winner take all situation, or everyone wins situation.
All right, Mike, last question. What, over the course of your career, what have you noticed has been some significant change in beliefs or ideas? And this can go any direction you want.
I used to think nutrient timing is probably more important than it really turned out to be. I think that I used to really try to aim to eat 7 meals per day, and now I eat 4 or 5 meals per day. And the combination of literature and my own practical experience has illustrated that, like, gee whiz, it probably doesn't matter. I did used to think that squatting just below parallel was probably as hypertrophic as squatting all the way down, but the recent research on stretch under load probably refutes that, and actually you should dunk everything. So believe it or not, I wasn't dedicated enough to full range of motion. Another thing is new research is showing that the lockout portion of a rep is really just not very important for growth. I had an intuition that was the case, but out of sheer obsessive compulsive disorder tendencies, I wanted to make sure I locked everything out for tracking purposes. And maybe that's not the wisest thing in the world. So I've changed my mind on the margins lately for that. Um, Mostly I still go through the full range of motion, but I don't like accentuate it. Like on tricep pushdowns, instead of locking out and holding and squeezing, I'll just go bloop, like all the way down, come and then slowly come back and stretch at the top. And you'll have people ask you, like, why don't you like squeeze the tricep at the bottom? And now what I'll do is ask them back, like, why would I? And they're like, well, like for growth. And they're like, is that true? And they're like, I don't know, is it? Like, I don't think it is. Like, oh, okay, cool. I can stop doing that stupid shit. You know, people will say like at the top of a leg press. This used to be very common advice, still is, unfortunately. At the top of a leg press, like really like flex and squeeze your quads. And that was always confusing to me. It was like, well, it's unloaded now. How is this helping me grow my quads at all if I'm just locked out with my knees and squeezing my quads before I go back down? Who knows? So stuff like that is basically taking in the science. And there's not a ton of things that I was categorically off on. But on the margins, like a bit more of this, a bit less of that, looks like, so on and so forth. There's been some research on training to failure that is interesting because it's sort of, at least this review article said that training to failure is much more hypertrophic. I've been asked a lot about that, what I think about it. What I think is I trained exclusively to failure for like 6 or 8 years of my bodybuilding career and even powerlifting. And it was a terrible time where I made not very impressive gains. And when I started training with RIR, I just exploded with new muscle. And because of the fatigue of training to failure is really intense. But I've also been on record for a decade now saying that if you're a very high level advanced bodybuilder, towards the end of your mesocycles, you should train to failure and possibly beyond failure. I think if any one set or few sets taken as a single stimulus, going all the way to failure and beyond categorically has to grow more muscle than stopping at 2 RIR. But the real big question is around sustainability. So I think my model of starting at 3 RIR and ending at 0 RIR has survived the recent test well. We'll see more studies need to come out, more reviews, because this one had some statistical methods that were like, at least just not questionable, but like not very conclusive. Menno Henselman's actually did a write-up on the analysis where he was like, I find a lot of this stuff not very convincing. I still think an average of 2 reps in reserve, 2 or 1 reps in reserve is probably your best average for training. But I guess not something I've changed my mind on, but something that's been around for a while is people have kind of the novelty fallacy all the time, and they always want to know what you think about the new thing. What do you think of that new study on XYZ? First of all, I never think about one study at a time. I think that's a misunderstanding of how science works. And one review at a time is pretty good stuff, but even then it's just the beginning of a hint. And you have to integrate that with like how you see your practical experience aligning. Like, yeah, I think, training to failure in any one session or training to failure with beginners and intermediates when they train 3 days a week absolutely grows more muscle than if they don't. But like, who the fuck trains 3 days a week as an advanced lifter? It's like these protocols would be like, oh, they trained legs 3 times a week. Like, what else do they do? Like, nothing. That's all they did. Like, well, shit, yeah, I would go beyond failure if I was training that low frequency for overall. But if you do 6 days a week of whole body training, I've still yet to see anyone who does an adequate volume training to failure all the time who can survive on the back end. There's always the Dorian Yates example of, I don't know if there was a muscle that towards the end of his career Dorian hadn't torn off his body. People are like, oh, you should go to failure. Like who? Like Dorian? He, sweet. Someone like Kevin Levrone tore one muscle and that was it, and then end up having an even just more career longevity. Is kind of, so a lot of people will take one study or take one review and try to see it in kind of an atomized context without linking in the experience and linking in all the other data and all the other insight. And they always want, like, what's the new thing? Like, do you see this new study? I'm sure you guys will see this, but there's the World Health Organization or the Cancer Research Agency arm said that their, aspartame is going to be a carcinogen or whatever. Now, if you really dig into what that means, it's a fucking sham of an organization, because drinking hot fluids is considered the same carcinogenic effect as aspartame, the same category. And the way they get to this is like, possible link in cancer in animals, but not in humans, possible link in humans, but not in animals, possible theoretical link in cancer, but no human and animal data. It's like, okay, so maybe it causes cancer. Like, are we banning suntans now and breathing the air and eating food? So, people are super, they want that yes or no. They want that revelatory answer. And most people have trouble thinking on a spectrum of nuance and probability. So I guess that's just me bitching for no reason.
All right. You've mentioned the RP hypertrophy app, but anything else you want to promote, or where people can find you, or the app itself?
Yeah, you can find all that on YouTube. That's probably the best place to find myself recently. RP, Renaissance Periodization on YouTube. If you can't spell that, just spell my name and I'll come up. And we produce a lot of videos, probably 5 videos a week now. And some of them are educational and some of them are funny. Most of them are some combination of both. Many of them are not funny at all, but I always have my off-color jokes that nobody laughs at. And it's a good time. It's basically, our YouTube channel is designed to help teach folks how to train and eat properly and recover properly through a bunch of levels, beginners, intermediate, advanced, and also have a good time while doing it. So if you click on links in descriptions, the RP Hypertrophy app's in one of those links, and a lot of users are piling on. So I'm just had a conference meeting with I have 57 butlers now, and I told them, listen, every single one of you better get me a Lamborghini by tomorrow. Stat, the money's coming in. And there was an air of there was a palpable discomfort in the room because they knew that they'd have to drive to really distant Lamborghini dealerships. They hate driving, but they get to drive the Lambo back, so that's fun. They have a good time, the butlers.
Sam, any other final thoughts or questions?
No, this was wonderful. Thank you.
Well, geez, my pleasure, guys. Seemed like I just did a lot of talking, but that's what a podcast is for, right? And we all have so much hair on our head that it's just so. Well, Sam, you've got hair, don't you? It's kind of matted down by your headphones.
Yeah,
Chris, how's
got
your
a
hair
little
looking
bit
there?
He's just like
I just
you.
shaved it this morning, freshly bald.
My man. Are you shaving it bald because you like the bald look, or because it's if you didn't shave it, it would be like a receding hairline, old man look that you're not interested
So here's
in?
the situation. We'll end on this. In grad school, I had long curly hair like to my shoulders, but it was slowly receding. Every male on both sides of my family is bald or was bald. So I knew there was no hope. And it's like, okay, you can't really bald gracefully. And I also had kind of a mental breakdown my first year of grad school of neuro class. So it was kind of like a metaphorical fuck you to the semester that I passed. And I probably should do this. So now I shave 3 days a week and just keep it
awesome.
high and
it
tight.
Feels so fresh,
It
doesn't
does.
it? And so clean.
Yeah.
And taking care of hair is so annoying. Why is it on me? I hate it.
100%.
I've often said that this is a random aside. You guys can feel free to cut this out if it's too politically incorrect, but I have I've never had a strong attachment to my gender identity. So if I woke up as a biological female tomorrow, I would just be like, fuck, it would be inconvenience for only one reason. Like, there's like so many things you have to take care of with your body. Like if you're a guy, whatever, just get some kind of haircut and you're fine. Put on deodorant, you're good to go. But a female, there's like, people judge you for how your hair looks and your outfits. I'd be like, oh my God. So like when people have long hair, I'm always like, God bless you, it looks amazing, but if I had to take care of that, I would just quit.
Yes, I have 2 young daughters, and they both have very long hair, and I have to brush it often, and I'm like, wow, this is such a hassle. Like the amount of
work
time so that it's not knotted up and just in a complete disaster, the amount of time it takes to do their hair every day. Yeah, I do not want that.
I hope they like it. A lot of people like it, though. I will say, great last thing. My wife and I were watching the Netflix series, highly recommended, by the way, the American Gladiator series. It's like a docuseries on the American Gladiators. Holy crap, it's so entertaining. And they did this thing where one of the competitors was like rollerball or whatever, like roller derby. And the hype man for it was going around the audience, like yelling things and singing. He was a man seemingly in his 40s or 50s who was not in shape at all, just like skinny fat. And he had a bald front, ponytail back. And he was going through the crowd yelling at people. And I was like, this man is pure fucking energy. And I love everything about him. Like, his balls must be in a pocket dimension so that they don't collapse our space-time continuum. If you can pull that off with confidence, you're just like, he probably was literally swimming in just like female attention. I could only hope to be like, but here's a problem. I can pull that off because I do have hair growing on the back of my head still, but it grows in like this Albert Einstein Jufro thing. So I was like, fuck it. I wanted a ponytail. I never got one. That's really what this whole podcast has been about, is my hair insecurities.
And that is a perfect place to stop. Thank you so much, Mike.
Of course. Thanks, guys.